Hey, Coach, I'm so happy you found us on YouTube. Make sure you go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. From someone that's coached for 37 years, won three state titles, coached numerous NBA and professional players. I'm telling you, I built teachhoops.com for you. It has everything you need to become a better basketball coach, from practice plans to videos to clinics to everything in one spot. I built it for myself. And now I'm sharing it with all of you. Go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let's head off to the video.
Welcome back to another episode of Coaching Youth Hoops. Today we have a guest, Julien Blin. Julien, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. Usually I'm the guest, but it's nice to kind of be the one on invited to those
Yeah,
podcasts.
that
So
that's
get
great.
it.
Yeah, because you're hosting a podcast, right? For your
Yeah,
company?
we've been hosting a podcast for the Upside, my company, and we've got about close to almost 300 guests now,
Nice.
which is
Yeah.
pretty nice, over the years to have done it. So we've got our own podcast. Yep.
This is we're getting close to 300 episodes, so we're like really like knocking on the door. Like it
Mm-hmm.
might be 299 as we speak
And
right
for
now.
me,
So yeah.
around 290 some ish. Yeah.
Julien, tell us who you are. And, yeah, give us your background and who the company you work for.
Yeah, so I funded my company actually next to in San Jose, California,
Oh, okay.
10 years ago, where you are.
Yeah.
Uh, Built a company called Upside, which really started me wanting to help the teams, professional teams.
Hmm.
So we basically built an ecosystem of about 10,000 sports executive. Um, we have a platform that the team uses to scout technology. We build actually our own chat GPT so they
Oh,
can
fun.
ask questions and vet and
Oh,
compare products and companies. We built a community of teams across the NBA, the NFL, the NCAA, the Premier League, and all that. And then we're also about to launch a recruiting platform called the Upside Career, which is an AI-driven recruiting platform that the teams and the subs will be able to use to find the next hire. And then we also do events, right? We've done a number of events. The last one was at the Panther Stadium in October. We
okay.
got about 50 attendees, 30 teams, 30 vendors. And then we've done also dinners. We've done one at the NBA Summer League last July. And then we're doing the next one in Atlanta with MLS teams and NWSL teams. So we do all those things, but the real goal is to be a resource for the teams and help them to find the best technology and the best talent for their
Yeah.
team.
So you've worked across NFL,
Yeah.
big tech, Google, Samsung, and now some early stage companies as well. But
Yeah.
if you strip away, your resume, what do you think that thread is that actually explains why you chose this career and this path?
Well, I always tell people back in 2016, I had an opportunity to join Apple. I was going to work 3 layers away from Tim Cook, and best job I've ever got. And I turned it down because I was doing events at the time and I was working for a startup, and I feel like my heart wasn't there. And
Mm-hmm.
I took on the opportunity to stick with the startup. And really, I always tell people I've never worked in sports or do what I'm doing now if I would have taken that job at Apple. And
Mm.
I'm glad I did because, Steve Jobs has this quote saying, like, looking back, when you're going through things in life, you don't really connect the dots, but looking back, you can. And I
Right.
think
Yeah.
going back, I think it was kind of meant to be, to work with the teams and the way I started. I mean, I had zero connection with any teams initially, right?
Mm.
And I basically sent an email that I found email with the president of the Earthquakes, where you are. And then
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
day I heard back from the athletic trainer. And that's how I started, inviting me to come and visit the facility. And my 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 goal was to just help the team to scout the best technology, wearable technology, whatever it was.
Mm.
And then I ended up talking to the 49ers. I became friends with Roger Craig,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Worked
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I talked to the Warriors and talked to the Sharks and the Stanford universities. And I grew this business to what it is today, which is 10,000 executive.
That's crazy. Wow.
10 years, but like I said, I didn't know any teams, nobody whatsoever. So it just took a while, but it took 10 years, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. Just, um, so if you think about your early experience and maybe even outside of sports,
Yeah.
what shaped your thoughts on innovation? Like, why did you care about helping sports
Innovation.
teams? And
Oh, the teams.
yeah,
Well, first of all, I got into innovation very randomly. I
uh-huh.
was doing an internship in Boston. I was teaching French to actually who at the time was the president of a management consulting firm in
Okay.
technology. And she said, "Hey, I'm looking for a new PR person for my firm." And I said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure, why not? I'll do PR." But then I had to learn and read about technology, right? Because my
Yeah,
job was to set up interviews with CNBC and a bunch of publications. So I had to learn about it, and I really kind of
interesting.
got hooked into it. And then I said, "Look, I love to become an analyst, but I can't get a job as an analyst right away." So I started working as a tech freelancer for publications in France and the US. And then I joined a firm called IDC, which is
Mm-hmm.
a top three research company that I joined in 2000. Was in 2016, I think it was.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, I worked for Wall Street. We had some customers at IDC was work for Wall Street firm. I joined. I got an opportunity to work for Wedbush Morgan Securities in LA. Joined the firm. 2008, the market crashed, so I got out of it, and then I ended up working for Samsung in 2010. I joined right before they launched the Samsung Galaxy smartphone. So I went
Oh
through the
wow, yeah,
Galaxy
yeah.
S2, S3, S4, Galaxy tablets, which was fun, right? I mean, working for a Korean was something I've never done before,
Yeah.
and that's when I moved to the Bay Area, right, with Samsung. And then working with team, it was just I wanted to be able to help the team, and the only way I knew to help them was through technology because that's where I come from.
That's where you come from. Yeah,
And
yeah.
2012, you saw the emergence of wearable technology.
Yep.
I was involved with a bunch of companies, and I had my early business where we were organizing. We were kind of the first to build this network of wearable technologies and IoT. So I did conferences with big wearable tech companies and big companies around wearables and IoT. We've done conferences in Tel Aviv, in San Francisco, in LA.
Yeah.
So that's why I got my foot in the door and get to know a lot of companies, right, in
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
But my real passion was in sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know any teams, right? So when I sent an email to the president of the Earthquakes, and I heard back the next day, I was like, man, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was just, I tried,
You're a
and
good salesperson then, if that's the case, man.
you
I
know,
want that
yeah,
that you sent him.
whatever I sent over to him, I guess he sent it over to the athletic trainer, and I've been friend with the athletic trainer Brian Lee, who works for the Galaxy now,
Hmm.
for over 10 years now.
Yeah, wow. So you've seen a lot then. You've gone through the wearables, the sensors, AI now, AR, VR. Which wave do you think we completely misunderstand right now?
Which technology is misunderstood, you mean? Or
Yeah. Uh-huh.
well, I think that there's back in the day, wearables was very, very hot. There was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
innovations around sensors to measure hydration or electrolyte lactate. And then you had the VR, AR, the metaverse wave, and everybody was kind of jumping into it,
Yeah.
right? And I think with AI, you've seen the same phenomenon, right? All those startups are kind of pivoting and they want to
Mm-hmm.
jump on the AI bandwagon. But I think there's I'm not sure all the AI companies have really solid technology when it comes to AI. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
repurposing and packaging a lot of the existing AI technology like OpenAI, Claude, and they're just repackaging existing technologies, right? And they go and
Mm-hmm.
price $1 million, but is that really innovative? I'm not sure. But I think we're entering a bubble when it comes to AI, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some guys are short selling NVIDIA, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I think, and I read an article recently about the fact that all those big companies, everybody talks about they're laying off people because of AI.
Yeah,
And one of
it's
the
not true.
arguments is it's not so much about that, the investment. They spend billions of dollars in the AI infrastructure, and they're barely using any of that. So they overspend, but now they
Mm,
have to pull back to save money, costs. And I guess the quickest way to do that is through
yeah, headcount,
laying
right?
off. But I
Yeah.
think they spend so much, but I think it's almost like we're getting into a bubble now.
And of the, again, going back to the wearables, the
Yeah.
sensors, the AR, VR, maybe some I you haven't even mentioned, what is one that really just never got the spotlight that should have?
That should have,
Yeah.
as far as any kind of technology that I've seen.
Yeah, in the sports area, of course.
Um, I mean, look, there's when I was working in the Silicon Valley, I was working for a company that built a sensor to measure sweat loss, hydration,
Okay.
dehydration.
Yeah, yeah,
And look, I've been following the space for 10 years, right?
yeah.
Back then, when I was, contacting the Warriors and the Sharks and all those teams about this, and even to this day, I don't think there's any company that are kind of own the hydration space.
Uh-huh.
I think it's still underserved, but it's one of the most the sector where the teams are the most interested in, right? Because when the players get dehydrated,
Yeah, it's bad.
like the cognitive assessment, right? Their
Yeah.
reaction time, and that's an area where I haven't found one company that dominates the space. I think
Hmm.
there's an area where there's a lot of interest, but I think it's still a market that's going to bring tremendous value to the teams, right?
Uh, the consumer models, the wearables that we wear on our wrist, do any of them have the hydration capability built in, like a
There
Whoop
are
or
some, but if you look at the Apple Watch, they don't have hydration assessment biosensing.
uh-huh.
Hydration sweat loss is one of the. It's not commonly used by the wearables like watches. There are some
Hmm.
watches that provides that today. Me personally, I'm really interested in all things like, for example, capturing lactate, cortisol. There's a new waves of types of innovations, and even
Hmm.
measuring their blood pressure
Yeah,
through wearables like an earbud. I think there's a lot of potential. But I think what's really going to make those products stand out is the ability through AI and machine learning to take that data and provide actionable insights.
that's right.
It's not
Yeah.
just telling you you're dehydrated, but what does that mean?
Right.
What? And one day I was trying a smart T-shirt. I
Oh
was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was from Home Signal. It's a company that shut down ever since. But I was running on the treadmill with that T-shirt, and it would tell me your heart rate is too elevated, or you should slow down.
Hmm.
You know, and that I'm more interested in the so what. What does that mean for me? What should I
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
to, increase my HRV, right? To
Hmm.
or to me, that's whoever's going to crack that more and have the best experience with the right insights at the right time.
Yeah.
That is going to be the what's going to make those products stand out. But I haven't really seen. We're starting to see some of that today, but I haven't really seen a divide that's like provide amazing insights. What they do, they just give you the data, HRV, hydration, sweat loss,
Yeah.
but it's still very limited in terms of the types of insights you can get.
Yeah, there's one that you mentioned too. It's not necessarily sweat, but that was one of the pieces of I'm going to look it up on my phone right now because I have
Yeah,
the app. Nori, uh, th they're building, they're basically they're aggregating data from all
yeah,
the smartwatches and things that we use, and then what they're asked they ask the question, so what, right? Well,
hmm,
what do I do? And they're trying to make it really simple to use, and that was part of my feedback for them as well, which is, look, yes, I have data, that's great,
yeah.
right? That's step one. But now, just, I'm not an expert, tell me, what do I need to do? What should I do next? Like, how do I use the data? How do I interpret the data? So I think that's, yeah, absolutely spot on.
One thing, I'll give you an example, right? Just let
Yeah,
me think about it. But one thing that I'm been experimenting and trying different devices
yeah.
is, have you heard of vagus nerve stimulators?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The yeah,
So I try the Pulsetto vagus nerve, the one you put
yeah,
around your
on
neck.
your neck, yeah.
provide the Hulas, which is a headset. You got
Okay.
two sensors on both sides. And that to me, like when I talk to teams about this, whether it's an NBA team or MLS teams, they're very intrigued because they all track HRV, for example, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
really have efficient ways to impact HRV. And I think with those like a vagus nerve stimulator,
Yeah.
you can actually impact HRV. Like right now, I'm trying it's an earable device.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vagus nerve stimulator, but you actually have an app and you can track your HRV, your stress
Mm.
index. And when I was talking to an NBA team this week, they were like, look, I could see ourselves using it as part of the recovery strategy. After the games, the
Yeah.
players get on the plane, put the headset or the earbuds on, and the same way they have the boots, right, from Normatec, they could also have simple earbuds to with the vagus nerve stimulators to really increase the HRV, so it can be a bit more relaxed and stuff like that. So I think there's something there. It's an old technology. It's nothing new, but I think there's good potential to have the team to use that as part of their recovery strategy.
Interesting. Which is a good segue into youth sports. So there's, kids are playing more and more games. It's not on. It's pretty typical for a club um, basketball program to do 60 to 80 games in a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, fundamentals are eroding. We're playing more games, but let's look at the positive side. Where could technology solve some issues what we're experiencing on the youth side and the amount of games that they're playing? And um, I'll
Yeah.
just maybe
So
leave it there because I think there's a lot, but I'd love to hear your expert opinion on that.
I
So,
mean, I talked to a couple of teams, for example, in high schools, right, in the U.S.
yeah.
Uh, Typically, for example, a high school team, or let's say a basketball high school coach, right?
Hmm.
They would have a budget of about $3,000 for the year, right?
Yeah.
Which is not a huge budget, but I think something you could do. I could see like GPS systems, which can be affordable. There are some lower cost GPS systems. I'm not talking about Catapult, which are way more expensive, like 30, 40,000 a year. But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
GPS to measure the load, like the distance run, that's easy enough, I think, for technology to use.
Mm-hmm.
There's also what I've seen is like a velocity-based training system, GymAware is one output that you could put on the bar, the bench press to track the reps, the force, things like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, and of course, you can use things like force plates, right, to measure
Yeah.
jumps and stuff like that. But again, when you're talking about a budget of $3,000, you're pretty limited in
Right.
terms of what you can do. Just to give you an example, right? A typical NBA team, they've got budget of about 200,000 to 300,000 a year on performance tech. An MLS team, because we track budgets, right? It's about
Yeah.
75 to 100,000. So with high schools, you're talking about $3,000
Yeah.
per team. So even if it's 3,000 times, you have 14 basketball, right?
Yeah.
Football. It's not a big budget, but that's why you
Right.
have to find something that's with the right price point. But I think if you start with GPS, maybe some force plates, maybe some velocity training system, that would be good enough, for them to get started.
So okay, that was extremely helpful. But if I think about, let's say they have a bigger budget, a decent budget,
Yeah,
but what we're really trying to we want to protect the health of the kids, right? And they're playing more and more, and we have no idea. We just, hey, they're kids, right? They can handle a lot, right?
yeah,
Probably the data would tell us otherwise.
yeah.
Um, so again, if we kind of move up that
So if they
scale
had a
from the
bigger budget,
they had a
yeah,
bigger budget, what is kind of that next tier or group of tech that
I
they
think,
could
okay, so
consider?
I'll give you an example, right? So a lot of the NBA teams, they're using, for example, smart insoles with sensors. There's
Oh,
one
yeah, yeah, yeah,
called
yeah.
Plantiga. They build initially the whole insole with sensors. You can
Mm-hmm.
measure the mapping pressure on the foot, so you can see when players are trying to compensate when they get back from injuries, right? You know they're going to
Yeah.
use the left foot versus right foot more. So that's one technology that I think would be great for high schools to use. Uh,
Mm.
Smart insoles. What else would be good to for team to use? I mean, obviously, tracking hydration, dehydration, as I mentioned earlier, could be interesting for outdoor, right? Sports like football, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, there's also a lot of, when it comes to football, there's a lot of, even the types that I work with, they build sensors to measure the hits. I was recently involved with a startup in Canada that built a robotic machine using advanced robotic and sensors. You literally, it's like you're sitting into a chair, and then you have a sensor that you apply, you push forwards and back and sideways, and it can really identify when you're weak and strong in your neck in like 2 minutes.
Mm.
So the big issues with concussions is that when you have a concussion, you have a weak neck. That's when you're more prone to concussions. So that's why having a device like this, you can profile a bunch of kids and you can see where
Mm.
they're weak and strong in their neck. So when they have a concussion, they're less likely to have the effect of the concussion because if you have a weak neck, your brain is going to move inside your brain. So that's when you have those issues with CTEs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because as I give you an example, one guy said to me one day, the woody woodpecker, right? The birds
Yeah,
that
yeah, 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 yeah.
what they found is that they have very strong neck. That's why they don't have concussions, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So if you saw Bill Crosby, who had a concussion with the Penguins many years ago, what they saw when he had a concussion, his neck was going like this, right?
Really?
So, yeah. So I think for
Okay.
football, concussion is a big
Right.
problem,
Huge problem. Yeah.
right? So even something like a machine like this, when you can evaluate each kid and you can see when they're weak and strong in their neck, and then after that, not only you can see because you have a profile, the bit of software, you can see exactly where they're weak and strong, but then you can use the machine to use it like twice a week to really reinforce those areas so you
Hmm.
can get stronger in where you're weak and strong. And they can measure all the data, right?
Yeah.
So now it's not a cheap machine. I'm not going to lie to you, but I think if they can bring it down to for high schoolers, that could be pretty big. Like I put them in touch, for example, with the UFC, right? It's
Yeah.
pretty obvious that they need
Yeah.
this. We put them in touch with some NFL teams, some Formula One teams as well, because in Formula One you take lots
Mm.
of right in the
Mm.
in
Yeah.
the term. But I think there's a huge market for football and down
Yeah.
to
Now, does the NFL use something like that in
yeah.
for
So
concussion? Yeah.
there's one NFL team that I introduced them to, and
Uh-huh.
they've been trying the technology. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
I
that's
can give you another
fascinating.
technology. It's called Kinmetrics. It's another company, Kinmetrics,
Kin, kin,
Kinmetrics,
K-I-N. Yeah. Okay.
Inmetrix.
Interesting.
I can't tell you the name of the NFL team, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they obviously they're working with them, and but I'm a big believer in the subtech technology because I work for. I tell you a story, right?
Yeah.
I was working with Roger Craig many years
Yeah.
ago, and then he introduced me to Steve Young. And
Hmm.
so I was sitting next to Steve Young, and we were literally pitching a startup that has a sensor to measure the number of hits, right? You would put it around your wrist or whatever, it would measure number of hits. But knowing the number of hits, it's great. Okay, now you're more prone to concussion, but it doesn't really help you for future concussions, and it doesn't do anything. Just it's after the facts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think with those new generation of machine, because no, back then there was no advancement like this in robotics and AI, but now
Hmm.
we got to a point where those machines are way more advanced, and they can help you prevent concussion potentially.
One of the issues we had a doctor on the um, podcast the other day, and we were talking about all the injuries to or knee injuries for females.
Yeah,
And the we didn't talk about tech or how but I'm trying to recall the pad you were talking about for the insole for the
yeah,
shoe.
yeah.
Is there a correlation between, or is it more post injury, or does that technology also look at
I
like
think you can use
maybe
it.
some
Yeah,
pre?
you can see before there might be a risk of injuries
Correct.
when
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you said it nicer than I did.
you
Yeah.
see like a different movement pattern or the
Correct. Yeah.
which use. But of course, you can use. I think it's pre-injury and
And
post-injury as well.
post-injury, yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Is there anything now? I mean, when you're working with females and you see those, the ACL,
yeah,
MCL injuries, is there any tech that's helping
yeah. They
look?
are.
Yeah,
They are. And so I'm not an expert in ACL injuries for female. The
yeah.
one thing I've heard is that when female go through their hormonal cycle, they're
Mm-hmm.
more prone to ACL injuries.
Yeah.
I've heard things like because they're more likely to take more risk and stuff like that. So there's a number of companies. One of them, it's called Orico. There's a number of companies building apps to help the coaches and the female athletes to know when to optimize training when they go through
Mm,
hormonal cycles, right?
yeah,
Periods.
yeah, yeah,
So there's a couple of companies who are getting into the space, and there's more team using that, right?
yeah.
To really know, uh, you know, uh, when is the best time for training, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they might be going through hormonal cycles and stuff like that. So we're seeing that today. It's already happening. There's a number of companies who do that today.
Interesting.
Orico is one of them, ORECO, but there's a number of them that I've seen also from Europe and other countries.
Hmm.
So
Uh, do you think let's talk about the AI right now. I'm going to go
yeah,
back to that because obviously it's in the news. We hear it, we talk about it, right? There's companies developing, analytics software, tracking performance, post performance, etc. And again, we'll focus on the kids here. Do you think kids can get better, young athletes can get better, um, or do you think, let me ask it this way. Do you think AI is going to be better than a mediocre coach when it comes to training and performance?
I see. I think it's getting there, but we wrote a piece, for example, about
Hmm.
how AI is going to enhance practitioners,
Okay.
coaches,
Yep.
but it will not replace them.
Mm.
Just like when people say, AI can, some teams use like AI or other modalities to replace to scout
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah.
I think it's a big stretch. I
Mm.
think that nothing can replace the human eye, the intuition. I've seen, for example, there's one company I talked to. They build a sensor that you can put on your wrist, and it would vibrate and tell you, or you have the wrong posture, right?
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Right? Companies
Interesting.
like that. I talked to a company recently that built a computer vision system. It's called GameRun.ai, and they can take the video feeds, right, of a
Uh-huh.
basketball game, and they can run a quick report after the game to tell you what your kid is doing wrong, what they should be doing, etc. But I don't think it's quite there yet. Uh,
Interesting.
so I think, like I said, we're in the early, like first inning of AI, but I think there's still a way to go when it comes to AI, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And even if you look at even something as simple as ChatGPT, right? There's big hallucination, there's big mistake, there's
Right.
inaccuracy. So and I will tell you one quote from Eric Schmidt, the former chairman of Google.
Yeah.
He said he believed that AI is underhyped because he's working on what's coming in 2 years.
Yeah.
But he said that what you see with ChatGPT and OpenAI, that's 2 years old already.
Mm.
That's 2 years old. So the stuff they're working on right now, like Eric Schmidt and his group and others, it's way more advanced than what you see today.
Interesting.
So I
Yeah.
think we're
Good.
as much as people say it's overhyped, I think it's underhyped.
Interesting. Well, even looking at, I mean, I think well, let me ask it this way instead. How much measurement is too much? You said a lot of stuff. You got the elbows. I'm measuring, I got my wearable, there's can be it's got to be overwhelming. And which also brings up a question of like, how do you sort it in your head? Because literally, I mean, if you think about everything that's possible, you're like a robot with all of these things all
Yeah.
hooked up to your body. So what is too much where it's just overload? And and like you said, maybe it's like, okay, I know my body. I know when I'm feeling hurt
Mhm.
or whatever it might be. And then the coach's intuition. So kind of give us what your
My take
opinion
on
on
that,
that.
I was doing an NBA group podcast with some NBA teams today,
Yeah.
and we were talking about the use of wearables, right? Because
Yep.
today you cannot use wearables during real game. You can only use it during practice. Otherwise, and they have a list of approved wearables that you can use, right, in the NBA during practice.
I thought you could, I thought the Warriors had it in game. Was that only in
No, you're not allowed
practice?
to. You're not allowed to. It's only in
Ah,
practice. You get teams who get caught using a wearable that's not approved,
yeah.
and in game they can get fined $200,000 a year. 200,000, right?
Yeah.
So it's in the CBA agreement, right? You cannot use
Ah, okay.
something. But I'll tell you something off the record. I was talking to an NBA team the other day, and they said, if I had to bet, I guarantee you there are some NBA players who are using wearables like the smart insoles or sensor in their
Mm,
short, but you have no way of knowing because it's invisible,
mm, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but going back to your question, is that too much data? I think there is too much data. I think the whoever is going to make sense of all that data, right, between your sleep, your heart rate, your hydration, and give you
Hmm.
those actionable insights, and it's going to be leading the way. But I haven't seen anybody who can take all that sets of data and make sense of it. The real innovation is going to be into making sense of it. It's not adding some new sensors on top of it. It's
Right.
not,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's where AI could potentially help. But I still think we have a way to go, and you don't want to provide the wrong diagnostic either, right? You got to be very careful about the types of
Hmm.
insights because there's huge liability as well, right?
That's a good point.
So,
Yeah.
like for example, there's also a lot of advancements as far as with AI, right?
Yep.
To predict the risk of injury. Okay, I was talking
Uh-huh.
to a vendor the other day, and
Hmm.
they looked at the injury with Jason Tatum when he broke his
Hmm.
Hercules with Celtics. And what they've done is they looked at the movement patterns, and with their model and machine learning and AI, they say, look, we could have predicted it. We could have predicted it before it happened. The challenge is during real game to be able to take that data live and to sort the data and pick the right data to be able to predict and predict an injury before it happens. Now, I asked them, are you going to be able to do it in the coming month? They say, yeah, whatever, 18 months, we'll get there. But even if they get there, and I talked to some NBA team about this,
Yeah.
let's just you build a model where you can predict real time during an NBA game. Okay, let's just say you are the head of performance of the Warriors. You're gonna go to Steve Kerr and say, in the fourth quarter, Steph Curry is gonna get hurt. Do you really believe he's gonna listen to you? I did
No.
7 of the NBA Finals. I doubt he's gonna listen to you and say, you know what? Okay, so be it. I guess if he's gonna get hurt, he's gonna get hurt, but he's gonna take that last shot, whatever it is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
practically, I think it's great that they can do it, that they will be able to do it. But the reality, I think, is very, very different. It's not very practical, um, because look, an NFL wide receiver might take that shot knowing he's going to get hurt. An NBA player might take or make that last move knowing he's going to get hurt. But it's about winning at the end of the day. So
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. That's fascinating that but I wonder though, I bet like again, I've only met Steph once and don't know that
yeah,
much, personally, but well, anybody who's a competitor is going to say put me in. Anyone who's,
yeah,
it's like, ooh, oh, the tech says or well, I sat in on it. I sat in on it um a college basketball team has wearables, and
yeah,
they had it was a practice, and they had a guy on a computer looking at all
mhm,
the data coming in, and the coach was checking in with him,
yeah,
right? And he did say, okay, that's too much load, right? Based on it
Yeah,
was supposed to be a lower impact day for them because they had a game tomorrow, they had a game a day before, so it was a low
yeah,
impact day. But it was really interesting because and first it was, one of their top five or one of their starters, she kind of peaked early, so he
yeah,
kind of backed her down, and then
yeah,
as a team they peaked, right? So he kind of backed them down. And then when they got to a certain range, he just called practice,
yeah.
right? That, you know, imagine John Wooden having something like that. Would he have stopped practice? Is it, are we, I guess, you hear something like that, you see witness like that, it makes sense intuitively, like, oh yeah, that's too much. We can't tell that internal, oh, you look tired. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah.
how much more
Yeah.
can
So
I
they,
push you?
so the many of the team they use what's called like AMS. You familiar with the
Yeah,
AMS
yeah, yeah.
platform?
Yeah.
So they use those, so they know what's the baseline of each athlete, and they know when they go above that, or let's say they track the GPS data, right? The
Yeah.
soccer team, and then they realize that guy ran way too much. So the next practice, he's got to slow down, or maybe just have him take a break because
Hmm.
he might get tired for the next game, and there might be a risk of injury,
Yeah.
right? So all the teams, all from college to professional teams, they have those software, those AMS platforms, and it's very standard. It's shocking if the team doesn't have that. It's I always tell people, the top 3 or 4 technology of college or professional teams, would be like an AMS platform, a GPS systems, the recovery boots, maybe a sleep tracker, right?
Mm, mm,
Uh,
hmm.
or force plates, and that's really it. But with all of that, what all they're trying to do is understand if some players that might be at a risk of injury,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do. Um, but going back to your comment about AI, sometimes people talk about alert fatigue. So there was this one company that I talked to, and they were being used by a Premier League club, Premier
Hmm.
League soccer team.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how do you like it? Their AI system, they were able to flag injuries and tell you, okay, you've got a risk of potential injury on your right ankle or your
Okay.
left
Yeah.
elbow. And then the comments from the practitioner was, I got 12 guys that the system flagged. I got to put a team on the field, right? So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so that system was
Yeah.
that's the limitation of AI because they were using that
Yeah.
10,000 data points
Hmm.
from soccer players or injuries, but the system was flagging 12 guys. So I got to put a team on the field. So,
Yeah.
and sometime, even though you're the head of performance, you're going to go to your head coach and you're going to tell him your best striker's got a risk of injury. So I don't care. He's got to play. And then next thing you know, the guy score a hat trick the next game.
Hmm.
So, that as much as people like to use technology, sometimes you got to rely on your instinct, your intuition, and the coach is going to make the decision no matter what anyway.
Right.
He
Yeah.
may not listen to the practitioner. So,
Well, if you
but,
think about though, from an outsider's perspective, and if you said, okay, look, Steph Curry makes a lot of money. He's extremely valuable to the
yeah,
Warriors, right? Without Steph, they don't win. Okay.
yeah,
So that is an investment the Warriors are making, right?
sure.
So again, from an outsider's perspective, I'm looking in and saying, "Oh man, protect that investment, right? If I had a $1 million car, right, that thing it would be in a garage, temperature controlled, getting the
Yeah.
best treatment, best gas, etc., right, to protect that vehicle." I'm assuming that's not how they're viewing this tech, or are they?
Oh, they use it. They use it for sure. All the team use it. They want to
Hmm.
protect the players. But yeah, you heard all the controversy with load management, right? In the NBA,
Yeah,
whenever
yeah.
you see on a star player, a Kawhi Leonard, and everybody's like, "What is happening?" The teams are very good at understanding, what's happening with the players. They even use like things like blood analysis, for example,
Mm,
to understand if the players are overtraining, undertraining, or at a risk of injury, or even before they get sick,
yeah.
right? So they got so much information. They're very good at when they know that something is wrong or there's going to be a major problem. Of course, they'll tell the coach and they'll take the proper measures, right? Maybe they adjust the training or the practice, the recovery, right? Whatever it is. But sometimes, as you know, players have to play through the pain, right?
Right.
Or they have injuries, and but the practitioners do a great job just taking care of the players, right? What I'm saying is the data sometimes, or the AI, or all those technologies, they just it's not practical sometimes when they have big games and they have to perform. But the number one priority of the practitioners is to protect the athletes, make sure
Yeah.
that they're not going to get hurt the next game. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that it happens. I'm just saying that the practitioners try to do the best job they can to talk to the coach and say, look, we're concerned about that player for X, Y reason. But sometimes the guy who's got the final say is the coach,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So,
and you brought up something too that I want to come back to.
yeah.
This had to be, I don't know, God, it seems like a while ago when the whole thing was happening in the NBA where it was about load management and,
Yeah.
they would sit their best players in certain games and the whole controversy was, fans are playing to go see Steph Curry, but Steph Curry is sitting because of load management. He's not injured, right? They're just managing and thinking that they want to protect him long term. That was a huge controversy. The I don't think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, the tech and the wearables and things like that was seemed to be after, at least the conversations were after that. This was pre like heavy tech. Is that true or not true?
What do you mean by that?
Meaning
So,
that this was not about tech saying, oh, these players need to sit for load management. This was the coach saying he needs to sit for load management because I don't think during that period for a couple of years that was going on in the NBA.
well, I don't know if you saw that, but there was a study that was conducted by the NBA,
Hmm.
and they did a study on load management. And what they kind of concluded it was that load management doesn't work because I
Oh,
think
no, I
the
didn't see that. Yeah.
NBA interest is to have all the players play as much as possible. Okay, it's a
Yeah.
business, right? But I think the team were more like on the other side and saying, no, no, those players needs to rest. We won't
Mm.
take care of. We don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think the NBA team they're in favor of load management, right? Because they want to protect the players.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes the league because they've got big primetime games, and I understand that. But load management is a very complicated topic, right?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Especially in the NBA. Especially in the NBA.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's complex, but the at the end of the day, the practitioners they have to take care of their athletes so they don't
Yep.
get hurt for a period of time.
Hmm.
So if they see something that there's a potential risk of injury, that's their job to tell the coach, say, look, we're seeing something here, and if we don't intervene, then it might be out for a longer time. So
Okay, so I'm a high school parent.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I have a child in high school who plays basketball. He has his regular season of basketball in high school. Then he jumps right into
yeah.
AAU. We're going back to this question of, they have 60 or 80 games in a season plus practices. In my opinion, that's way too
Yeah,
much. I'm a parent. I'm concerned.
yeah.
I don't have, $200,000 to spend on on tech. What
Yeah.
is one thing I can do that is tech that I should buy, I should look at that could help me so my kid doesn't get injured? Is
I
there
mean, you could
anything?
buy. There's probably some lower cost, there's some low cost GPS system
Okay.
that you can buy. It's pretty inexpensive, and you can literally measure the load, right? The distance run. And I would just buy something like this. If you're really concerned about that, you
Mm-hmm.
can see the load management. Is he running too much, right?
Mm.
There are big difference between that practice and the last practice. That could be as simple as that. Or I was talking about the plantiga insole, right? That's
Yeah.
another way to see what's going on. um, because there's not that many ways to measure the load, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's a couple of things you can buy to really measure that if you're concerned as a parent. In my case, my son, when he was doing AU practice, right, he
Yeah.
was training like 2 or 3 times a week, but then he was doing tracks and tennis at the same time. And
Right.
in the end, he ended up getting an injury that took him out of the game for like 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And I talked to some friend and said, look, his body couldn't take it. The
Mm.
increased load was too much for him to handle.
Yeah.
And when you start growing, right, you're young,
Yeah.
he's like
Right.
15.
Yeah.
There was a big lesson for him because instead of doing three sports at a time and training like 2 hours at a time in AU practice 3 days a week, it's gonna catch up with you at some point.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and
that's
he was
why
good. And that's pretty typical though, right? I mean,
it's
meaning,
difficult. But I
uh,
think the problem is those guys were just doing basketball. He was doing basketball and tracks,
right.
tracks from like 3 o'clock until like 5 o'clock, and then doing like 2 hours of basketball practice after that.
Yeah.
So, and he was going home exhausted and he had to do homework and everything.
Right.
So, it was just too much. And he couldn't, at the end, he was glad he did it. But in the end, I think, he got hurt because of that too.
Hmm. So if
So,
you again, there's no wrong answer to this because
yeah,
we're gonna look out, let's call it 10 years from now. Okay.
yeah.
Do you see uh, an AU program or a high school program being outfitted in tech? Because the barrier right now is cost, right? For most of them.
It's
So,
already happening. I mean, I
mhm.
know some startups that build like a light version of an AMS system
Okay.
that's a team like use in the New York area, for example.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there are some startups that are really focusing on AAU high schools with those lower cost solution. Because there's no reason in my mind why a high school team or an AU team cannot use the tech that the pros
Okay.
use or college
Yeah.
use.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it's just a matter of time. And it's like I said, I know a number of high school and AU teams are already using wearable. They're already using MS system. They're already in GPS systems because uh, like if you take an AU team, right, they have to attract talent, they have to retain talent,
Yeah.
and just like in college, what I've heard from many NCAA team is that technology is used as a recruiting tool, right? It's
How,
used to recruit talent
how so?
uh, these days, right? So there's no reason why, and that's why some AU team are spending money, and because they make a decent amount of money, right? So why not investing in lower cost AMS, GPS systems, stuff like that.
Do you understand, or do you, when you said that the these systems are being used to recruit, what does that mean?
So if you look, I talked to some, for example, NCAA teams, right?
Hmm.
They when a student athlete goes and visit an NCAA team, they're going to showcase, like the advanced or force monitoring systems
Yeah.
to show them what tech they use. That was very true, like a couple of years ago. But now with the
Hmm.
Neo, it's all about how much you're going to pay me.
Yep.
It's not so much about, like, I was talking to an NCAA team, football team
Yeah.
in Florida, and they were like, "Look, a few years ago, that's all they care about. Yeah, but now it's like, how much are you going to give me?"
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know.
Interesting. Yeah, it
So
is. It is. That's changed. Yeah, for
and what's
sure.
happening, what I'm hearing too, is that because of the Neo, for example, there was one of the top basketball NCAA team in the U.S.
Hmm.
There was a private donor who wanted to spend like $30,000 to buy a big machine, right? A pretty very great machine that you could use for the team. And then the head coach of that basketball team said, "No, we'll take the $30,000 to help us make an offer of $1.5 million to a basketball player we want to recruit." So they're
Wow.
diverting budgets, tech budgets. But look,
Yeah.
$30,000 out of 1.5 million, it's not going to make a big difference,
No.
right? But
But
the
that
budget
tech could have
increased.
made a big difference, the $30,000 on the performance of
Yeah,
that team. Yeah.
then it's impacting the quality of the program because if you don't have those equipments to prevent injuries, to improve the training, in a way, both the players and the practitioners are suffering from it too.
Right.
right?
So, we talked a lot about conversations that are happening. I mean, you see a lot. You talk to
Yeah.
a lot of execs at these tech companies, professionals, the professional side, professional sports side. What conversations are not happening that should?
That should.
Yeah. Or maybe that desperately need to be having.
So one thing that I see more teams gravitating around is what they call the leadership skill development, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Interesting.
we all know, for example, the Spurs are notorious to have the program with the veterans, Tim Duncan, Tony
Yep.
Parker, Ginobili. One coach, one of the best rugby coach told me leadership skill development is the most important thing,
Mm,
you know, and I think the team culture, that impacts the team culture, right? A lot.
yeah,
So having that really team culture, something above players, right? That's gonna stay, and you've got this culture of winning or whatever it is, like you have with the Spurs, with the Warriors, right? That's gonna make a big difference when team things go wrong, when they start losing. That if you don't have a strong team culture or leadership skill development,
yeah,
then that's when things gonna fall apart. But if you have a strong foundation, um, then you're gonna get through those things, right?
yeah.
So I think leadership skill development is one of the most important thing that some teams I know are focusing on in the NBA and other leagues because it's going to greatly impact the program and the culture and the winning. At the end of the day, it's the winning culture, right?
Well,
So
it's interesting. We're talking about tech, and the
yeah,
one conversation you're talking about doesn't require tech.
no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's nothing about technology. It's all about you know having the right culture and the right people in place, and everybody is accountable and doing what they're supposed
Hmm.
to. And that's what makes some teams stand out and have success for years and years and years, right?
Yeah.
Uh, whether it's the Spurs or the Warriors or the Patriots back in the day. If you don't have a strong team culture, it's hard to have success over and over, over a
Yeah.
period of time.
Consistently. So,
Yeah,
okay. So here you can dream a little bit too. Uh, I'm going to write you a check right now for $1 million. Okay.
yeah,
It's your money to spend in youth sports tech. Okay.
yeah.
What would you do? What specific problem would it solve?
I think I would, if you look at, like I said, sports like football, I
Mm-hmm.
would really adopt those machines, right? To really
Mm.
understand, have a profile on each athletes on their next strengths, right? When they're weak
Okay.
and strong,
Yeah.
have them use that as part of their program, right?
Yeah.
To really help them to prevent potential concussion, which, as we know, in youth football, it's becoming a problem, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I would also spend it on like video analysis systems. Video analysis is very common. There's technologies like Huddle,
Yeah.
which is very popular in youth sports. I would also invest in force plates, right? Force plate is something that's very commonly used by a lot of different teams.
Mm.
I would also invest in GPS systems to measure the load, right? You can buy, the system like Catapult and,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Sports, but there's some lower cost products as well. I would also invest in maybe heart rate monitoring, right?
Mm.
'Cause that's
Mm.
important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also an AMS platform, right? So the AMS collects all that data, makes sense of it, but there's some lower cost platforms out there that are very simple to use, and they give the teams insights on each of the players through dashboards. And if you have those things, I think, and also maybe invest in like recovery boots, right? Because
Oh
recovery
yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
is important, and there's some lower cost solution. I even got some at home of some of the lower cost vendors, but that to me that's kind of a minimum, and maybe some SIP trackers. But kids are kids, right? If they don't want to go to bed early, they're not going to do it. So
Right.
that's
Yeah, 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 true. Uh, is there, when you think about bringing tech and, uh, well, I'll just call it tech. We'll just keep it generic. What are
Yeah,
some of the, and we're bringing tech to the youth. And I know you're kind of thinking, right, you're thinking more professional and that's what
yeah.
your head's wrapped around, but just off the top of your head, think about your own kids and they have access to all this tech now. What are some of the unintended consequences you think of bringing this kind of tech to youth? When I say youth, 18 and under.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody talks about the smartphones, right? Kids are,
Yeah,
it's they use smartphones all day long,
yeah.
and they use their Beat headsets or AirPods, and they completely, not they're not present, they're not there, and I think
Mm,
that's important with technology. It's that I was listening to something I think on NPR, and they were talking how technology it's impacting potentially their the speech, right? Because when you're a young child, you're supposed to speak, but now they're all staring at their phone. The speech development is not there yet, right?
interesting.
And that's why, I guess guys like, Steve Jobs didn't want his kids to be around iPhones and iPads because he knew the, downside of using those devices, right?
Yeah.
Uh, just like Facebook, social media, whether it's, Meta or Snapchat, I think it's negative also for the health, the mental health of the kids, because that's all they look at every day, and they compare themselves to other kids, and sometimes they get bullied and everything. So I think it's you got to be very careful about how they use it and when they use it, and not even talking
Mm,
about inappropriate content, which is another issue too.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you think there's an ethical line with data tracking at the youth level that we have to be worried about? Because there's this idea between the tension, right, between developing and protecting, right?
I think
Developing the
like
child and protecting the
I
child.
always remember one of the co-founder of Facebook who said, when we built Facebook or Meta, we knew what we were doing. When we were building the algorithm, we knew that that thing would be extremely addictive.
Mm,
So I think when it comes to the data about the child, I think there's got to be some better laws to protect the privacy, and I think it's too
hmm.
important.
So if I use, and speaking of that, let's use your example of the concussion. And this might be a crazy question. What's the difference between performance data and health data in the concussion machine? I have a weak neck. You don't have a weak neck. I have a weak neck. Holy cow, you got a weak neck. You need to do something about it. And we can extrapolate that across a lot of other performance related. Is that for a child? Is there a difference between health and performance related data? And is there a line? Now I can do my blood and I can do all of these other things.
Oh, the difference between performance versus health data.
Yeah.
Um, so, for example, the leagues, right? They have those AMS system, which is more tracking performance data like GPS, sleep, force plates data, and then you've got the more medical data, right? Cardiac screening, heart
Hmm.
rate, which are a bit more. And there's things like HIPAA compliance, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gotta be very, very careful about that. So there's a line between the two.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why when it comes to the use of wearables, I think in the NBA and the CBA agreement,
Yeah.
the NBA team cannot use the wearable data for contract negotiation and stuff like that, right? So because they want
Uh,
to protect the athletes, because some team could say, well, we saw in the wearable data that you've been slowing down, or you're not as fast as you used to be, you don't jump as
oh
high.
my gosh, I didn't think about it
So
from that perspective. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's why they don't want the data to go into the wrong hands and be used in certain ways.
Mm,
That's why the agents are pushing back and say, I don't want you guys to use that data in certain way for a contract negotiation. Um, so that's why I think the NBA is doing a good job controlling that. Um, but yeah, that could have some pretty bad consequences, right? To use
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
for
absolutely.
players.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Interesting. Well, hey, this has been amazing. I really appreciate it. I know we're early on in youth tech, and to
Yeah,
hear from somebody that you're seeing it at the professional level and kind of relating it to us, I think that's going to go a long way. I think there are a lot of devices out there that can provide some
Yeah,
performance enhancement, can look at prevention, which I think is probably maybe as big of a deal at the youth level.
yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners? Again, you're speaking to coaches, you're speaking to parents right now. Is there in this area of sports tech?
I would say, look, at the end of the day, the kid needs to have fun out there, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like there's so much pressure from parents to other coaches for the kids to perform at the highest
Yeah.
level. But I think we should not forget it's just a game at the end of the day,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And tech has limitations, right? So not a tech is perfect, and sometimes you have to rely on the coach intuition and what the kid is telling you, because they know their body. But I think it's important to protect the kids and their safety, right? No matter what. So that's what I would
Yeah.
say.
The one tech I want to have though is the lie detector. If, oh, coach, I can't run today because,
Yeah, I
Are you
can run.
sure? Are you really? Did you? Yeah, anyway, I'm
But you
teasing,
say you
but
felt great when you took the wellness questionnaire, but now we see under your data that you felt great.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Well, Julian, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Where can people learn more about, what you're doing and, keep up to date on sport tech?
yeah, so they can just go to www.upsideglobal.co, or they can join our newsletter. It's theupside.us, and it's a free newsletter. We send it 5 days a week, so that's the
Oh
best way
wow.
to
Okay.
do it.
Great. I didn't catch that one either. I'm gonna go because I follow you online in a few places, so I didn't catch the newsletter. Well, hey, absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late for you.
Yeah,
And anyway, I hope to have you back on maybe in a couple
yeah,
years, and we can say, "Oh my gosh, yeah, look at all the wearables in youth space right now." So,
I hope
uh,
so. You're right. Yeah,
Julian, till next time, coaches, thank you for tuning in. And we'll have Julian's info in the show notes. All right, till
that
next
sounds great.
time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Hey, coach. I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. You can find the link down below. It is the one-stop shop for basketball coaches. Let me know if you have any questions. I can be reached at steve@teachhoops.com, and have a great day.